Hey everybody, this is your good friend the safety doc, Dr. David Proden from down here in the North Star recording studio. It is late and I wanted to use my headphones again, but also I've been grading, reviewing papers for the upcoming class that I'm teaching, right? And I don't think people understand how to go about describing a shared vision. So, this is an assignment I've had in this class for a few years. Actually, I'm not sure I'm going to keep this assignment, um, but shared vision seems to be in a lot of language, right, for schools and grants and interagency cooperation, stuff like that. Um, but I want to go through an assignment that I put together that I'm going to do in class, um, and just introduce it here. So um, let me bring it up on another screen. So I built this specifically for. I'm going to hand this out to my students. I printed off copies of this for everyone. It's Bolo. Hey, buddy. And Saltude Surfer. Welcome. So yeah, this was I got done with grading papers and I still have papers to grade, but they're not submitted yet. They're actually not due until tomorrow night, which is something I have to change in the future because class is on Saturday. And if people submit things Friday night, then I have to stay up grading a little longer than I would like because I have to be out of the house by like 5:30 to be on the road to the university. So, but I have an activity that I've been thinking about, and I actually built this today. So um, I'm going to bring it up and show you what it is and what I'm going to try to accomplish with it. So we will go to the present screen, um, and here it is. So a little hard to see, but I'll zoom in on areas. Um, So it's a one-page sheet that I'm going to hand out, and I put my name at the bottom and then the year and stuff because this is something where when people have it, I wouldn't be surprised if this starts working its way around. Um, which is okay. It's not trademark copyright, anything like that. But I would appreciate, right, if anything is used, that it is cited back to the author. So this is the Venn diagram, right? The three circles, and then what you're supposed. And again, I just put this together. Um, so my my thought was the shared vision is okay. So right, we have three entities for these Venn in this Venn diagram. There could be many, and then of course, where they would cross would be the shared vision, but Um, so this is a class for aspiring special education directors. So right here, I don't know why I can't just kind of easily toggle this, but it's not letting me do that. So here's a special education director. So these are aspiring special education directors. Down here is a principal. I just used one. I didn't, it could be collective, like, your principals in a district, but this is your board of education. So I'm just using these three, and then you have to identify what the shared what the characteristics of the shared vision are. So down below, what are two characteristics of these school leaders? They're all leading, but in different ways. Shared vision. So here's why I put this assignment together. What people typically write in their assignments. Hey, it's Andrew. Wow, Doc, you're doing more videos. Yeah, I don't know about that. And Clary. Um, yeah. Uh, but I am doing more videos, and we're really close like, to the watch hours, which is cool. Um, and so giving the mic a little more workout tonight. So um, by the way, before I get into this, concrete's looking great. So they removed the forms today and brought in black dirt, kind of a dirt clay mix, which was really good because we're on sandy soil, so that gives a little more substance, so nothing is going to erode away. It's usually like when you buy like topsoil around here, it's just basically a bag of sand because it's like everything around here is sand, which is has its benefits. Um, I would rather have sand than like clay, but um, then I got 3 bags of the grass seed with the mulch in it, and and it's mostly rye, annual rye, not, but I mixed in some clover and some other stuff. And rye grows quickly, but it only grows for 1 season. But I just need that to kind of get seeded in, and we have plenty of time for that because it'll be in the 50s and 60s the next 10 days. But so things are good with that. Um, so so I did this. I made this assignment. I'm going to go through it with you, and you can let me know if it makes sense, Bolo and Andrew. Um, so the students who are aspiring special education directors in this class, one assignment it's a short assignment, it's 1 page, but you h- how do you how would you describe your shared vision as a special education director, right? Um, and what people tend to do is they write about um, a shared vision is it's not really my shared vision. It's just like a shared vision is getting input from everybody and being a listener and um, that you're representing principles and community and whatever in your decisions. I'm like, okay, but that's not really a shared vision, right? That's I'm not sure what that is. So like a shared vision is a process. It's a pretty big undertaking. And if you're just saying like, listening to people and stuff like that, well, that's stuff you could do now and you probably should be doing now. So I thought, how can I put this together in a way where people will, I guess, look at this differently? Um, the way that I want them to look at it, no one is kind of getting there on their own. And it's not really a critique of people because I think if I was handed this assignment, right, I would probably be like, oh, come on, like one of these like lofty, oh, shared vision type things. And but it's not really like that. So, but anyway, dun, da, da, there's me. But let's go back to stream. So here's what I did is I think before you get to a shared vision, so no matter where you work, right, or what you're doing, if there's some mission statement that says, shared vision, I don't think that's bad. It's not as flowery and this kind of abstractness that tends to go into a lot of vision statements, stuff like that. But you got to know what you're doing to create a shared vision. So I put this document together to try to do this. So let me get into it. So I think there's 3 things that go into creating the shared vision. Um, and these are not the shared vision though. And this is where people get mixed up, right? And no one ever teaches you this. Nobody goes through and tries to do this. And most people just accept if you say, "What is a shared vision?" Well, it's getting input from everybody, and then that the decision represents whatever. But I'm like, that doesn't really work, right? Like you're in a leadership position. Um, it's unlikely everybody is going to be on the same page because they're representing different interests. The Board of Education is different than what the principal's interests, which will be more site-based versus you as a director of special education and so forth. It doesn't mean it doesn't work, but so the first thing is I put this together. I've been thinking about it for a couple days, so I sat down tonight. Informed and informing. So this will be an activity. They'll have this sheet, but I won't hand it out until class. Informed and informing. So when you're listening to people, you're being informed by them, by the tone of what they're telling you, right? By the depth of how they understand things. You are being informed. So that's the first part. Um, Now, another part then is inform and informing. You are communicating out. Here's the laws. right, for special education. Here's 1973, the 504, Section 504, which is access, and that really fits closely with 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act, which is access to schools, why we have elevators in schools, um, things like that. And that under the Individuals with Disability Education Act, schools are legally obligated to provide services for students with disabilities, and just explaining how schools operate, right? So people can understand it. Because what people do is they'll be like, well, they can go to our webpage, or here's like the handbook, and like no one understands that. Nobody does. So it's JLM, hey buddy, and All Pro Limited. Welcome, welcome. Why am I not? I don't have you guys up on the. Uh, so let's do this. Quick shout out, Solitude, hey buddy. Bolo, Andrew, Bolo. I see 3 empty petals of the shared vision flower. That is funny. Modernization and leveraging new technology, all pro Leamington. So we're gonna kinda get into that, um, would be my guess. Hello, everyone. So I'm glad you put that in there because that's kind of where I'm going a little bit on this. So again, this is I've graded half the assignments for the class, and it people are back into, and this assignment really hasn't accomplished what I've wanted to do since for the last like 3 years since it's been in this class. And the reason it's there is because it aligns with um, the state standards for teacher licensing in this area and stuff like that. So I'm just so then in class I have to like fix it. And so it's that's an awkward process, and I don't want to like be up in front of the class and say, you know, what how you approach this really wasn't the way to approach it. Now, so this is why I did the activity, right? I want them to come back to this, and not that I have a problem with that, right? And it's not that I would be, like people be, oh my goodness. Um, but I wish I had this document years ago. So anyway, informed and informing. If you are listening to people, you're being informed, you're also listening to the tone and the way that they're communicating to you. And then as you communicate out to them, like policies and how schools operate, you're informing them, right? The next one is advocacy. You, as a school leader, right, you need to inform legislation and policies through meeting with your legislators, which I tell people to do. I it's your state legislators, they'll do that. And also giving testimony, usually at state level hearings, although they could be federal hearings or they could be county hearings if it's county mental health services or health and human services that would be um, provided to students. So advocacy, right? So part of your shared vision that goes into that, like the pillars that shared vision sits upon, is I, is informed and informing. It's advocacy right here, and then the last one is procedural. So, like you would decide to allocate your budget or allocate assets that you have, could be staff. You would put professional development behind the priorities that you know you believe support the and are going to lead you to the shared vision, right? So if the shared vision is going to be kind of like what Alpra Leamington said, like leveraging new technology, students are going to be uh, utilizing the virtual reality classroom. We're going to transition them into that. Um, that you're going to put your budget and your staff training into that area, right? Um, you're going to put those resources in curriculum around students. You're going to figure out um, from students what works and what doesn't as far as these maybe this virtual reality learning, which again, so part of this is the shared vision is never what is in front of you. It's you're not in the moment, right? you can't see it from where you're at. You, so you have to identify that it's out there, and it's like radar on a, you know, old battleship or whatever. Like you can ping, right? Or one ping only, but you know it's out there, but you so you have to find how to get there, right? That's the thing. But the shared vision, people think it's right. It's in the moment. It's what they're doing, and it's not. Like the shared vision is always down the road. Um, and by the time you get to it, there might be things that significantly change that move you away from the shared vision. Um, Technology changes, cultural changes, things like that, right? So, but you have some place that you're going to end up pretty close to where that is. So I kind of use this analogy when I talk in class about this, and I said, back when they built the in the 80s, right, when they were starting to build the new um, aircraft carriers, right, like the Ronald Reagan and or 80s or 90s, whenever that the Ronald Reagan was built, maybe it was whatever 2000s, but there's a video, and they have where the captain is, right, the helm or of the ship or whatever it is, and there's empty areas right on the console. And so here's like the radar or something else, whatever, but then there's these empty areas. And the question is like, well, why are these areas empty? Like what's the design purpose of this? And they said, well, that's for the technology that hasn't been invented yet. And so that's a pretty cool point. We have to remember to talk about that. Usually I do, but um Reagan. So I don't know, command deck will say tech to be invented. Wait, I'll have some student who served on the Reagan. They'll be like, that wasn't in there. I'm like, it was. I saw the video. Maybe it was Battleship New Jersey when it got retrofitted in the 90s. I don't know. But um, so part of going through this, right, is when I actually do this in class, I'll go through their assignments and give a little feedback. I usually take my pink highlighter, and so I mark up comment on their papers and stuff. And then on the pink highlighter, I will put a star next to something in their paper I want to talk about during class. So that way everyone gets one thing that is talked about. Um, and I can make sure that that it's different, right? So um, but so I have this little kind of this way that I do that just as I'm going through papers. It immediately cues me in to look for the pink kind of star that I put on the paper. But going back to this assignment, right? Shared vision, and if you see something, the bridge, it's like, thanks, jeez, for all the Star Trek I watched. Not that it's the same, but yeah. So I'm not in the Navy, so I'm like, what is it? You're right, it's the bridge. Should know that. Thanks, JLMs. Just wrote it down. So then I won't be in class and be like, you know, Doc doesn't understand. It's a bridge, right? Everyone knows that. Um, So, all right, so I'm coming at this, I'm saying here's you have to you have these pieces that the shared vision sits on. And again, that is in being informed. So when you have your listening sessions, right? Like that is not the shared vision. That is that's different. The shared vision sits on top of that. And then as you're communicating things out, hopefully in your board meetings and whatever you're doing on your website, meeting with people, right, about how schools operate, that you're informing. The vision sits on top of this. Advocacy, you've got to be doing that. Nobody does this, right? I shouldn't say that, but actually nobody has done this in my class. Either class's fault. Nobody has written an article. Nobody's met with a legislator. Nobody's called. Nobody's um, written a journal article. And again, like not that that's innately part of your job, but usually I've had people in the past who say, yeah, with the legislator or um, they've been kind of more involved in that process. Um, so they kind of think it ends with a board of education meeting. So that's where I'm like, the shared vision means you've got to be meeting with players who will influence policy at a state or federal level, or even in your community, right? Things that are going to be embraced by your community, like a community um, not far from us. They're putting up this like huge rec center. I mean, big part through a donation, but I think it has like 8 basketball courts in it, and part of it was they wanted, because it's winter, they wanted gym space for the public and then also for the students, for, right, fitness and clubs and teams, and they had made this commitment. But anyway, procedural, where you where you put your money and how you decide your budget, and this is a budget class too. So we go through and do that. But where you put your budget clearly shows your priorities. So follow the money, right? If as a leader and you're in control of your flow through budget and your Fund 10 budget category, all the budgets for special education, right? Probably millions of dollars. Um, where you put your budget and as you have staff and you're allocating them to this building or this project, right? And well, that's you're showing your hand. And I mean, that has to happen, right? But you can't say on a shared vision, like, this is what I believe in, and this is kind of what we want as a district, and then not put your money and assets there to support it, right? So that has to fit right away. Um, so right, if we're talking about um, new technology, all pro Lemonton, um, but yet, we're not spending money on high speed internet, right? We're choosing to, um, sp- uh, I guess I don't know how you're choosing to spend it on older or different software or adaptive playground equipment, or I mean, these are all like things where you can spend money, and not that they're bad things, but if you're really saying like, um, you know, we want to go and make our shared vision is we're getting to hybrid education where students are going to have basically you know, um, I will say virtual reality learning type thing. They're going to have access to different people, to instructors, and they won't be bound by the classroom. Um, and just like we don't know what it is, it's kind of being invented, right? But we're going to be on that leading edge of that. You got to put your money to get there because the people are like, well, we don't even have high speed internet here, right? Kids don't have hotspots at home, and we're still working with old Chromebooks. So how, you say we're going to do this, right? But really, and when you start talking about stuff like um, super pilot-ish, Graham Wilson, and what he would say, we're not to me, so we're not far away. I think he posted this to me, but so we got to be thinking, right? Because kids will have AI devices, students with disabilities. So instead of a service animal, like policy service animal, there might be a service robot. Um, kind of like an iRobot, right? 2003 or 2004, Will Smith. But we kind of think that's a kind of a funny thing right now, like, oh, but it's really not, right? There could be some type of um, you know robotic type assistant for a that would that would have some comparable areas to like a service animal. um, and I'd say that's not far down the road. Maybe in the next 10 years somebody has something like that where they have a service robot um, assigned to them. That one of the things, right, when I worked at the School for the Blind didn't have any guide dogs, which I thought was unusual. I just expected that. And when I talked to one of the teachers, Dave Hyde, who's been blind since birth, he said, the thing is, right, when you're at the school, You're learning to use your key, and you're learning to navigate environment without sight. Said the a dog, right? The a guide, a service animal um, has has many benefits, and people who are blind. Some do have animals, but the service animal doesn't know the layout of your town, right? It doesn't know that that's where the grocery store is, and you know, um, so the service animal doesn't have that GPS thing. So you have that, right? The service animal. So that could kind of switch. And actually, at the School for the Blind, I mean, uh, when I was there, kids were using their iPhones. This is a few years ago, and they would the iPhone would basically tell them where they were at, and they would say like, whatever bus, or I need to get to, they would get directions like on the iPhone. So the fact, right, is, these technologies will just be embedded. People will have these things. Um, so, so as you're teaching, right, like I remember when I was in fifth grade, I had to know every state capital. Well, that's pretty useless, right? Because you can look that up. And in fifth grade, you could look it up in an encyclopedia, right? Um, as we didn't have the internet back then, but so a lot of these things too are going to be like you're going to for your shared vision, there are going to be things you have to say, we're transitioning away from this stuff. We're not going to do this other stuff um, anymore, right? It's just we can't do everything, and some of the stuff we're not going to do because we're transitioning forward. So, like, we're not going to require kids to know like the state capitals. They have to know how to find the state capitals, but we're not going to actually have a test that you have to write the state capitals down. Because right, what's the point of that? The memorization. So you're teaching them to interact with technology, um, which is dependence upon technology. But I mean, if we've had that in other aspects of our life, going back 100 years. Dependence is from a horse to automobile, and dependence on electricity for light and stuff, candles, and uh, dependent upon phone for communication. But let's say there isn't anything bad that's going to happen, like the internet's not going to get shut down, or really, like, even if it does, right? You'd have enough on your local device offline to work with, right? That you'd be teaching that. But so anyway, so we have these three things, and then I'm going to go over to the chat. We have these three things: informed, informing, advocacy, and procedural, that support your shared vision. Your shared vision sits on top of that. None of those things are the shared vision. Most of the students will identify some or all of those things as the shared vision. So, right, they're looking at the three legs of the stool, and they're saying the legs are the seat, and the seat is different, right? Um, so that's why I wanted to put that up above, to make it very clear for people. Like, if you're trying to answer this and you're saying listening, that's not that doesn't work, because look, if it's listed up above, it cannot be your answer down below. So, not bolo, but there we go. So let's go over to the chat. Um, Hello, everyone. JLM. I want to say something about the school shooting in Texas. Someone's back. Um, where were all the emergency exit doors for each individual classroom? So, don't know. Um, I After the Uvalde shooting, I looked at the school and what was available for. I don't know if it's necessarily like the blueprints or whatever. Um, so I don't know. I think it was a one-story school, so I don't know if they. A lot of schools now, that a lot of the new schools, that was not a new school, Robb Elementary, but the windows don't open. They seal them, and they do that for HVAC. They completely seal. One of my soups was talking, they just had a referendum go through, and the building will have 100% sealed. Um, so, um, some, yeah, I need I need to kind of wind my brain up a little bit if that's where it's like I can really engage in that, and which is great, jail. It absolutely it is. I'm not kind of there tonight. Um, how can children learn remote if no parent is home? Do this? Yeah, and I think remote is part of it. I think there's another part of remote, like you could have. So a couple of the new schools in our state are built with these. It's almost like a 2-year college campus. So you're still on campus, right? You're still accessing your campus resources, campus Wi-Fi, the meals, and you still have like some classes, but it's like basically high school takes on more of a 2-year college. So you might be spending time in the commons doing your remote class. Um, so yeah, and what I was thinking about this, right, if it's younger kids, I I don't know, right? So this is something. So with a shared vision, right, there's going to be a lot of pieces you're not going to have figured out, and there'll be things that'll be like, well, this isn't going to work, or it won't work for like everybody. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and I don't obviously want to flip back to how things were during the pandemic, right? That everybody does remote learning. Um, but I think there needs to be this kind of asynchronous quality because we've proven we can do it. So like, you should, in some areas, be able to access a presentation or like if or uh, have something that's beyond 8 to 3. Like, I don't think the 8 to 3 school day, you know, necessarily works anymore. Like maybe it's 8 to 3, but maybe there's one time it's like night, right? And teachers are available. But the teachers then have off like up morning or something like that. I don't know, but I think for parents to also be able to access things asynchronous and kids to be able to do some, because like kids can do, and I'm not saying like a 5-year-old, but I'm like, kids can access through their phones and smart devices and they can create and do demonstrations and whatever and the video stuff. You don't need to be in the school to do a lot of that. Like when I went to school, right? I remember when the school bought a, a TV camera, right? Basically, which was huge, and it was in the library, and it took the big kind of beta tapes or VHS or whatever, and this thing was and this big battery pack, and then the school got a VCR, so they could record stuff off, like, PBS or whatever, and then kids could come down at a certain time, like, if you're in 2nd grade, they would play some science show or something, and it was just crazy technology, right? You'd look at this stuff, you know, that was, like, more than 40 years ago, so, um but you didn't have that at home, like, nobody had a camcorder and really, like, nobody at that time even had VCRs, so, like, the school had a lot of stuff that kids didn't have, and the school, like, maybe had 1 or, like, early version of a computer or something, but now, there's not much that a school would have n outside, like, kids have access to most of this, like, what schools have, like, big 3D printing labs and things like that, that they have the space for, right, and the resources to buy the filaments and stuff like that. But as far as like the technology, it's a pretty level playing field. There's a lot of power, right, that you have in just a basic computer or phone. Um, but let me go back. Heath, a shared vision is someone's input idea put in motion. Yeah. So it has to be. This is a good point because remember, like, this can't be what's already happening, and that's what some people kinda write because I'm like, well, like, if you're just talking about getting people's input and stuff, like, you should be doing that right now, and the other part is, like, once you create the shared vision, which is out there, 3, 5 years, whatever it is, um, 10 years, I mean, you have to be realistic on it, and then, of course, you're gonna have turnover and people have to keep carrying the baton toward the shared vision, but, you have to put it in motion. You can't just sit there. You have to, like, draw a line in the sand, you have your baseline, you move. So that's another it's a good point. because people like generate all this stuff and then the wheels never turn, right? So as soon as they create the shared vision and they report it at a board of education meeting, it's like, we did it. And then it's like, okay, and they might read it at the start of a board meeting, but then there's nothing done to propel toward that. So it's like creating the shared vision was the shared vision of the team. If we create the shared vision, then we've accomplished what we're going to do. And that is not like that. So team synergy requires frictionless support from all. You think frictionless, Bolo? Um, I mean, I I don't know. I think some friction can be good as long as somebody's not intentionally sabotaging, right? I mean, I think there has to be a non-negotiable of, um, if you're in this, right, this is the direction we're going in. If that's for you, then don't be here. But um, I I think some friction is good because friction. Here's what I'll say to that below. I think friction creates traction. By God, I got to write that down. That's why I bought all these post-it notes. Friction creates traction. That's a pretty good little slogan there I just came up with. That would that's kind of like I might have some use for that. Um, and I think that also um, can kind of let you know where people are at with things versus like people just going along with stuff. So I think there is, I mean, but friction is a fine line because right, too much friction you're not going to get moving, right? Because it's going to take too much energy to move you from stasis. And if you just have continual friction as you're moving, you're just destroying yourself, right? It's like driving a car that doesn't have oil. The you know, first 100 yards are okay. And then um, after that, the it's just unsustainable. So thanks for putting that out there, Bolo, because I think there's a lot to kind of spin off of that analogy. Um, JLM made points about durability and reliability when grinding some prototype springs. If the engine fails, someone dies. Yeah. So, and that's something too. Like people in this situation, no one is dying, but you what you do will impact people throughout their entire life and their quality of life, right? And um, so you have this impact, which could be positive or negative. And if it's negative, it's probably amortized over years of life. And it's like, for example, having students never teaching them how to put together a budget, right? You have so much to spend, and here's what you're going to, spend on food and housing, and actually go through and you practice those things and stuff like that. And if you don't do that right, and students get out, then they don't understand it, or they don't understand how to be as efficient with it as they should be, and they get in debt and get bad habits, and then of course it's hard to spin your way out of that. Um, I hate memorization crap. Don't we have enough? Yeah, no, I'm with you. Um, I don't see it a lot anymore, but I still see it, and like I don't. It's cognitive offloading, right? You don't have to memorize a lot of stuff. Like you don't need to know. Again, like I don't need to know the 50 state capitals. Um, I kind of don't need to know like maps, right? And I get there is this part too, right? I understand you could say things could go down and all that. Well, you can have that stuff electronically that's off the grid, right? But I'm just so this is part of this whole shared vision. I'm going to come back to this what I'm doing here with people, right? Is so that's going to kind of come in the shared vision of saying cognitive offloading is part of your shared vision. You're not going to have to know everything. So by God, I got to put that down in my notes here for class. Cognitive offloading. I'm using one of my purple pens, which I'm a little nervous because I grade with these and they're nobody stocks them right now. I have like two left. Um, so hello, Vanessa, Kitty, hey, and Jordan from SK. Hey, buddy. Bacon from Inglewood. Da-da. No remote learning if students have no internet. Right, got it. So we come back up on this assignment, which I'm just kind of test driving tonight. If you're not allocating your budget toward internet or high speed internet at your school and things like that, you're not, and you have your shared vision is technology, right? Cognitive offloading and virtual reality learning, 3D printing, things like this. And we want to equip. So that's kind of where your shared vision is that you want. But if you're not putting the budget, if you're not supporting legislation for you know, rural internet and high-speed internet um, in your communities, right? You're not really doing what you need to do to support your shared vision. So let me go through, and I have three entities here. So these will all be either new or aspiring special education directors on Saturday. And then I have a principal's vision, and then board of education. So just use three to give them an example. So let's say that the special education director's vision, like just kind of that person for their department, is inclusion, right? Um, we want to have fewer um, special education, like separate curriculums, right? We want to get to where kind of there's co-teaching and all teachers are teaching all students. So this model it's a vision we're going to, shared vision. Um, Artificial intelligence supports um, individualized for students, meaning that AI, whether it be on an app or a tablet or whatever, like that, it is adapting to the student's needs, right? So if the student is um, has low vision, it would automatically increase the size of the text or be able to do text to speech. Or if there's other areas, right, that the student has disabilities, reading disabilities, it's changing up the way that things are presented, or as it's giving. You can click on a word and it'll give a definition. I don't know what this is, right? I'm just saying though that the AI would be matched to the student. It wouldn't be like a generic AI. It would be very customizable. And alternate paths to licensure I put in there because there's a huge shortage of special education staff. And so if you have staff, you can do these things, right? So if you're structurally not going to have staff, your vision needs to be like we need to be able to get people into this without having them say, oh, I got to commit 4 to 6 years of my life to that. It's just not the society we live in. And it's that kind of progressive credentialism. So anyway, special education director, this is like, let's say there are three things that they see in their vision. The principal's vision, principals like personal learning, right? We want students to progress at their own pace. Maybe they can start taking courses for college credit or courses for like Google certification for like a server person, whatever. Um, so and also hybrid and in person, we want to change up our schools so it is kind of like a 2-year college camp, at least high schools, and then maybe I don't know, middle schools could see a lot of changes. Consistency in teaching so that they they'll try. This is a big part. Principals try to, let's say you have 4 sections of fourth grade, they want all of those sections to be pretty similar, like at any one time what they're covering. Meaning the teachers can do different activities, but like if you go from one class to another, what's being covered, the content should be similar. So they would work on they be like consistency. Like if we could get more consistency in teaching, it would be, and that might be through grade level meetings. It might be changing up the schedule or these things. But anyway, so let's say principal says this. Now your board of education might have something completely different. Well, not completely, but let's say your board of education says our vision for the future, our shared vision is we believe in electric schools. We want all the schools or any new construction to be um, solar and hydrothermal, or whatever it is, or geothermal. We want virtual reality learning. We want our students to be able to um, almost go and we believe there's almost these simulator type environments, right? That they'll be able to go and not that a simulator would replace real life, but um, it's one of the things like what Graham Wilson talked about. Once people can do flight simulators, it gets them interested in flying. It doesn't teach them to fly, but it interests them. So virtual reality learning might be a way to interest kids more into learning if they're actually standing and like doing things as they believe they're interacting with things versus sitting in a desk, right? So you kind of change the means, and the board of education will throw this out there. They'll be like, we want our students to return to work and live in the community because we invest in them our 12 years, and with the families and the kids move, and then eventually the families move and it turns over. So like we want them to come back. So well, they're also saying we want them to have internships in the local businesses, right? We want to build that business in school. Um, and so that'll be a board of education looking at that. And they'll also think, this is essential for our population of our community and right tax base. So that is going to be different. You're not going to be thinking about that. So you have everybody has a different take on a shared vision for their big kind of department that they oversee. Principals kind of just oversee right the whole school, special education director services students with disabilities, counselors, nurse. But board of education is overseeing everything plus like the fiscal side and like um, they're going to be making decisions which are going to shape the school in the community for years. So all these are different, right? So none of them are wrong. All of them are different. So again, I just created this. So let me know what you think. Bacon. Da-da, it's Bacon. Hello, Bacon. Um, JLM. There are some cellular companies working on inexpensive cellular Wi-Fi boxes. You got it, right? So that would fall also in this of advocacy. You're informing like your legislators to support stuff like that. And then if you have budget you're allocating, that maybe you can get some of that stuff either into your students' homes or like into your school settings to increase that. So, but that's a really cool thing, right? So, technology. So let's look at this. What is a shared vision? So down below, what are two characteristics of school leaders' shared vision? The leaders, plural, right here at the apostrophe after the S. One would be, I think there's a number of things. I think one is technology. Is you have up here the special education director. You're thinking artificial intelligence, devices supporting students, alternate paths to licensure, which is probably going to be that people can take stuff online. They don't have to take all the others. So like technology would be a big part of that. Electric schools, virtual learning, board of education, that's technology. Personal learning, hybrid, um, here the principal, that's technology. So there's a shared vision of technology, right? The technology will be a part of this and investing. So we go back up. So that's going to be, I think, one. So hopefully people would come up with that. We'll see. But I mean, they'll each do this on their own and they'll say, like, hey, hey, Steve, like, what did you have? Um, so informed and informing, right? Listening to people and all that, advocacy, procedural, allocate budgets. So then, like, if you have this shared vision of technology, you'd want to see procedurally that you're going to commit your budget, your assets toward it. You're going to be working toward legislation and Board of Educations to support that. Board of Education policy, every student will have a one-to-one device, which that's pretty standard now, but that not only that, like every student will have a one-to-one device. and like we will commit to updating or replacing those every 2 years, right? Like our or including like we'll have a virtual reality device or station in every classroom or something like that. So you make these commitments out as a board. Informed in advocacy, so you're listening to people, um, and they're so JLM, they're coming back to you maybe saying like, we don't have the Wi-Fi. You're like, okay, so we know this is going on. You're communicating your laws. We have to teach a step, but we can teach it in different ways. And how it manifests in the schools, like, yeah, we're going to do this, right? But we have to structurally also change the school buildings. Like maybe we're moving away from all of these classrooms, right? Um, and this is one of the things too. So when you build a school 5 or 10 years from now, like, does it need to be as big as it is today? Or can it be smaller with more shared spaces? Do you need all these classrooms? Now, one of the arguments for that would be, well, yeah, because right, if there's another pandemic, you want to have a big setting so you can space people out. That wasn't an argument like before 2020. Um, so you could always have that what if scenario playing out. But so I think technology is one in the middle for shared vision. So does anybody have? Well, let me go, Andrew. 2020, my mother watched her 10-year-old grandkid during online class, and he would have an iPad behind his laptop playing game. Well, that's not cool. So, right. So now that would be so if someone would say this, right? So Andrew's a valid point, but it doesn't change the shared vision. The shared vision is like if I could have had my calculator watch in, I had a watch that had games on it, like when I was in elementary school, and so there's always been some version of that, right? Um, but how do you like esports? Kids of all ages like really get into esports, and now that's or like into Minecraft, right? For um, like my daughters had Minecraft accounts when they were in school. Or if you do virtual reality learning, that's going to be more interesting and engaging than right, just kind of watching somebody and then having iPad and playing stuff. So some of this will be there. Like it'll technically have to be worked out. And the way that you'd inform that, I think, Andrew, right, is you'd actually have to get the students to tell you, like, this is why I do this. Like, this is why I find this to be boring. And nobody does that. I did that, like I would have students that qualitative side of saying, you know, ask the students, they'll tell you like why this isn't interesting. You might think it's the greatest thing, or maybe they're just like, you're interesting. Like I like you, teacher, but like I I don't like the Google Classroom setup that we have to go through. Like it's just, and I think people like are so like I don't want to hear that, right? And I don't want to. They get offended by it, or who are you to tell me this? And there's this other thing. Oh, like it would take too much time to like get the input. Nah, you just don't want to do it. So you're right, Andrew. And if someone brings it up, right? I mean, we'll go down that road. Um, Camcorders are way expensive. I have a camcorder like I want to get rid of. It's about 5 years old. I used it a few times. It's the one actually my daughter and I took out during the pandemic, and she did her like 13 shows that I wrote about in my book, What's Happening in Town. So works fine, but I just have no use for it. Um, I would never see myself using that. So I don't know what I should do with it. Donate to, or not donate it. Like who wants that anymore? Like just use their phone. If there's a market for that on Craigslist. I also have a nice Zoom H4 that I only used about 5 hours. That I kind of want to package the whole thing up and just say like, if you $100, here it is, including the case, which would be a really good deal. But you have to like come pick it up. I'm not going to deal with shipping it. Um, a modern very a modern variation on the comic book inside the textbook trick. Yeah, so that's a good way to put that, JLM. So, um, yep. Now, what I have to do in class is I have to make sure people don't get hung up on this because, you know, That's it's all what you're saying is completely valid, right? And people will go there, and you have to say, again, this is this. It's one of the parts that is a pillar for shared vision. Um, Synergy is something special. Yeah, and another part with that bolo, right? And you have to have people over time. So it's kind of like when a sports team wins a state championship or a professional championship, like it's usually like that season, right? It's teams don't typically repeat. It's just statistically rare. Um, so in schools, and this is what I've been telling people too, is like you're creating a shared vision while you're playing Moneyball right now. So because you just don't have staff out there, right? Um, I mean, every student has in my class says they're down, they don't have enough staff, meaning they have the money to hire staff. The staff aren't there to be hired. Um, so you have to still have a shared vision. You have to be a Billy Bean, even though you're you don't have all of the pieces, right? And you have to make it work with the pieces you have. And knowing that maybe you can get more, but you're going to have turnover. We know that teachers stay for about 3 years and they leave administrators 2 to 3 years. So the oh, safety doc is now live. Well, who's that? Uh, Colts 12, Broncos 9. Interesting. And the Broncos defense. So I don't know. Um, so you got to present it, and you also have you can't have people be defeated by that. So, but you have to say like, and this is pretty much every school. I mean, even when I say even, but the schools that have a very strong tax base, right, in more in the metro areas or sub-metro where people, if two people, you know, are, it's, the families there, one can work somewhere else in the community, right? There's different jobs there. I mean, you go to a small community as a teacher, right? Your spouse might not have a lot they can do unless they can work remotes, but that's why it's harder to recruit in these smaller communities. One of the reasons. There's also reasons like there's benefits in smaller communities, like people go there, um, but yeah, that is. So I think this whole thing too of like you can't get defeated by the Moneyball approach. You have to have a shared vision, but you have to know that this shared vision, when you set that down, you say it's out there, you're not going to be the person who will ever get to realize it. That'll be very rare. You'll be gone. There might be 3 people after you, and so, it's like starting out a building, right? And, after you're there, there's subcontractors and people come in and you move on to a different, project and whatever, and people take over, but it's unlikely you will be the person who will ever see this vision come to fruition. But your job is to say, "There it is. There's, like, the lighthouse. There you have the coordinates. Boom, there it is." Um, so which is kinda weird to tell people that, right? It's like you are going you and the other people involved, like, very few of you, if any of you, will be around, maybe some board members that, s you know, are in for 10 years or whatever, but it's like very few of you are gonna be here when this is actually realized, when we actually get to this point, and that's okay, like, but just it's kinda weird to get people on board with that. Um, the world doesn't work without friction. Yeah, that's a good article. That would actually be a good podcast. JLM, you should contact me. You should be a guest on the show, along with Bolo. Um, If there's no friction, there's no traction. If there's no traction, it doesn't matter how much power the engine makes, the tires just spin right. So, and I think that is a good statement, JLM, because that's also a statement of saying you can have a lot of resources. You can be really super high powered because you also get people who look and they'll be like, this district has more. Like they're going to be able to accomplish their shared vision. Well, yeah, but if they don't have traction, right? Um, they might they they might just spin, right? They're not going to. The engine will rev loudly, and you'll hear all of that, but they're not going to get the key. Really, is traction, right? Um, so that's really a good point. Man, I'm going to talk about that. I'm glad I did this tonight. Um, some maps, lens attic compass in an afternoon. I can teach some basics. Yeah. So good. So that kind of goes into we had this shared vision. The principle. I want personal learning and maybe like there's some change in curriculum or how would you incorporate AI so you could do that with Pokemon Go type of thing to do GPS while you're also doing technical things that you're actually, you're holding that aren't technology, right? That you're making these calculations of whatever, but like geocaching games, you could mix geocaching in with a compass, and so see how this all comes together. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. I had to do the A squared, B squared, C squared on my driveway when I was figuring out the square footage. So it doesn't exactly come out that way, but it's very, very close. Um, of how many square foot I added to my driveway. No argument on the benefit of friction. I was thinking friction between people and teams, um, and wonderful results. I'm glad you shared it. I mean, we got on a terrific thread of discussion because you shared that, Bolo. So this is awesome. Like, it's really good. And JLM and you guys have really built this. Like, I'm going to use this on Saturday, and people are going to sit there and they're going to watch, and I'll be like presenting this. They'll be, holy smokes! Like he's kind of he's prophetic up there. He's really like insightful. Um, so this will be pretty awe-inspiring. Um, and I'll be like, came together on a Thursday night. Standardized parts were added to the Norse firearms just prior to the American Civil War. JLM. Got it. I can do random factoids. Vanessa. Yeah, Eli Museum in New Haven, Springfield Armory in Springfield, Massachusetts. Pythagoras is always good fun. Jalen Bolo, I disagree. Look at what heating the experts got us. Engineered germs, toxic foods, lethal discord, and thought experiments are usual, but all plans fall apart in contact with reality. So, um, okay, I don't, I don't know what to say to that, but yeah. First, first of all, I love what you guys are putting out there. This is really helpful to me, and as I'm working on this. So, um, so yeah, coming back to kind of like so what I'm trying to do here with this, so everybody gets this. I already printed these off for class. I made this today, and what I'll do is I'll explain it to them, and then underneath, I'm going to give them 5 minutes of working individually, and you just have to say, what are two characteristics of the shared vision? Like there's you know could be endless things that fit in here. We don't know. But what are like two things that fit in here? And you cannot put, because most people say listening, being a good listener, listening to everyone. Nope, that's not. We know it's not in here because if it's up above, it can't be in here. That's the rule. That's why I built all of this first, and then I was like, I had to put this up because I knew because people are just they hear that they're conditioned to hear, and most people don't even do that well, right? Most people they have to listen to everybody. No, they listen in order to wait to take their turn. They listen and then just do a rebuttal. Like they don't listen to learn. They listen to rebuttal. So it's just weird. Um, but I think this will be good, like without being threatening in the diagram and write all over it. It's your thing. You just got to come up with two things, and then I will be up front and people then I'll just go through and say, what are the two things you came up and we'll write them down and then we'll just see what people come up with and I'll try to curate that into okay, so of what everybody put up here, what's kind of multiple things that are showing up so we know like that is a theme. Technology, I would think would be one. I think another part of a shared vision is you have to be a futurist. Now, this is me, and like I'm not gonna unless they watch a show, but I think you have to be a futurist, right? I don't know if like saying you have to be Elon Musk. Um, well, hey, Jordan, rest up, buddy. Um, I have I had to get up really early with all the concrete work going on here because I had to get the vehicles out. So um, I was tired today, and then moving all the dirt and stuff, like several yards of dirt and seeding, and I had to drive over to the next city to get some seed and mulch, um, and then tomorrow night I'm sure I'll be upgrading because people aren't going to have their stuff in, and then I'll be on the road at 5:40, and then Sunday I've got like 3 cars of firewood coming in, and I'm like, geez, I've got like some other meetings next week, but I do have. So Jordan, thanks for being here, buddy. Um, and Monday we have the show with Megan Isui, which I'm really looking forward to, 7 o'clock at night. So Jordan, that one will be earlier, 7 o'clock Central Time. I do have one of my books that I am delivering in person tomorrow to somebody. So who's a fan of the safety doc work, and was asking if I would dropped off um, a book and was asking if I would sign it and things, and it was during the concrete stuff, right? So, so I was like, yes, but like I'm not leave it, and I will like sign it, and then in a couple days, like I'll get it back to you, right? Because I have my stamp and all of that stuff, and then I kind of have to like, you know, get that practice a few times so it's all inked up, and I'm glad to do this, like, right? But I'm I'm not really set up to like just do this in the moment. So, but that's cool. So, I had a Casio calculator, cool idea, nearly impossible to use. Yeah. You could shoot videos on your ride stock, like my bike rides. I thought about that. I need to get the right camera. And then I'd have to like edit that down because, you just don't want to be out there, but or speed it up, right? So as you're going through, there would be just sections of maybe I could do like a voice on top of that of what's going. I go to some really cool places, like um, there's a lot of CCC stuff, the thousand-year-old effigy mounds that I bike past. So uh, I'd like to do that. So that I need the camera. Um, like MTV Unplugged, none of it works without plugs and wires. Yeah. Um, damn, I knew I should have bet on the Colts. Yeah, well, Colts wasn't their owner on the or the coaches on the hot seat because the owner's like, come on, I guess they're winning games. But it wasn't not a lot of scoring there. Denver's a big disappointment. I drafted Russell Wilson, but he's on my bench, and at some point I just might have to cut him. So, um, so apparently the Wisconsin National Guard was activated and slated to go to Cape Town, South Africa. I didn't know that. Did not know that. Um, wow. And I wonder why Cape Town, South Africa. Like to just do a little side step, like Florida, done right. Um, Yeah, below. Now we're speaking some variation in English. We can agree. Talent, money, and skill. Yeah, don't you? I do need to. It's Nick Schulaner. It's Nick, friend of the show. He's been on twice. So yeah, you have a standing invite, buddy. Just let me know. But give me a week because I am very tired. Slinging concrete this week. Added on big concrete slab on the side of the house. And just other stuff. So be teaching 8 hours. I have to drive 4 hours on Saturday. So all good, but yeah, I have a Monster um, energy drink in my trunk in case I forget to bring one for the ride home. Um, then I got one in the trunk. Although it's all interstate, so I have to like pull off somewhere, off on a off ramp or something. You grab it, but and not that there aren't stores, right? And whatever, but I think year-round classes, but shorter class will be more effective. So JLM, so a shared vision, so that would go in probably up above. So if all of this kind of points to we have to do some big shifts to the way that we instruct. So you're informing people. You're saying, hey, like we're going to um, look at operating year round. Maybe you have legislation. In Wisconsin, there's a law that you can't do it because like a lot of the summer resorts and stuff, you couldn't start school until after September 3rd. And um, so that's to some extent that's still in the books here. Um, so you'd have to legislatively go and then allocating your budget and assets. So you would probably have to allocate towards some air conditioning, right? So Wisconsin, a number of the schools don't have air conditioning or it's limited because um, school it's really only hot here consistently July, well June through maybe September, right? So, most of your school time, you're not having to deal with warm temperatures. It's the opposite. So you'd have to put some, but see, that's where we go in. There's always a place for it. Like like this is a pretty damn good thing here. I mean, um, I could just turn this into like a presentation, but so it's an activity. Transportation of students to school is more expensive than bringing education students. You're right. With as fuel gets to be 7, 8, $9 a gallon, so those will be things will come into this kind of logistics or procedural stuff. So you're going to have to be changing these things all the way along to kind of still stay on track with your shared vision. And you might like if you have a pandemic, right? You'll say, well, you know, we're going to our shared vision's still out there. But this is going to divert us for 2 years and then we'll likely return to course, or maybe there'll be things that we'll discover which again we'll reset our shared vision, but we're still going like west, right? We're not going now like north or something like that or south. We're still going west, but we're altering our coordinates a little bit. But so I think shared vision. So what do you guys think here for oh, I like this. JLM, not things like non-essentials belong at the schools, band, team sports, choir, things like that. I think some things, the non-essentials belong at the schools, band. Yeah, I no argument. I yeah, live stream of the slab drawing. I did a 3-minute video of when they were pouring the concrete and the process with the skid steer and stuff. Um, and I did that for the concrete contractor because we're talking and he's having his website updated and stuff. And I said, if this turns out, I'll give you the video and maybe you can cut it down or you can put it on like your channel or whatever. Um, but I thought about like live streaming, but that's kind of weird because like if I'm working, I wouldn't want somebody live streaming me. So like when I did the clip of the skid steer getting concrete, it was only 11 seconds long, right? So um, but there was apparently a fox on the concrete last night because when they came this morning, they could see the footprints and the guy knew it was a fox, but the concrete that wasn't embedded, the concrete had set, but the footprints were there because it was muddy around and they were like, a fox was on. And that's pretty typical with fox and skunk and deer and all that coming through the yard. Um, so So what do you this is our friend Nick Schiller. My brother's school doesn't allow students to have their backpacks in class, but they do allow smaller one-strap bags that basically function as backpacks, right? Right, Nick? Yeah, right. So these schools that went to you have to have a clear backpack. Well, you couldn't like, does that really work? The answer is no. And it's, Todd Beamer High School, right? That systems fatigue. So even if backpacks were being checked or people were trying to observe in backpacks. They're not going to do that after, the first 6, 7 weeks of school because it slows things down and, um, you know, so you're right. Those types of things are crazy. At least they still have lockers. I had lockers when I was in college. I went to a 2-year college and it had lockers. We each had a lock, which was a neat thing to have. So, um, they had one dorm, so most people just drove in and out, and, so there were certain things you could just leave there in your locker. It's kind of cool. It was a good experience. That's a Venn diagram? That is. This is a Venn diagram. It can be just 2, and you could do the overlap in the middle. Usually they show 3. You can do more, but, this kinda gets the point across. You're trying to the shared vision where everybody is kind of, like, on on board, right? Um, so what do you think? So I said in the shared vision, um, in this example, at school we have a special education director, a principal, board of education. Um, what so a shared vision, again, it cannot be informing while we're listening to people. Like that's our vision is to get everybody's input. No, it's an activity you do to get to the vision. Advocacy, you know, the policies have to change, things have to be funded. The yeah, I get it, right? But that's part of getting to the process. Procedural, our vision is that we will be allocating our budget, we'll be putting our professional development, we'll be training. Yeah, I get it, right? That's to get to the vision. That's not the vision. These are all things that they're all ingredients. Like that's not the cake. These are all ingredients, right? I'm not asking you for ingredients. Um, so what do you think? Um, what do you think fits in here? So I think technology, and I think you have to be a futurist. Meaning, and by being a futurist, there's another quality in that. Being a futurist means that you are. Um, why is this not? There we go. Being a futurist means so obviously like you're looking beyond right now. Um, and you're comfortable with that. You're comfortable with making based predictions and stuff like that. Um, so, but you're also transitioning people to the future. They'll get there anyway, right? But one of the things, like during the pandemic and lockdown, is people felt this finite felt time was slowing down. Like so, when I wrote in philosophy of information about my daughter, and so as a young kid, suddenly you're not going to school, you're not meeting up with your friends, you're not biking, you're not doing volleyball practice. So all these things that make time pass and they're kind of these things that are new, these new experiences, you're not having them, so time slows down. Um, so that's, you know, you by being a futurist, you keep people, you keep time fast for people, I guess, right? You have new experiences, you're always moving towards something new. These experiences move you toward it. So I think as thinking as a futurist, you're always um, people are not hitting this burnout on things because they believe they're taking steps toward it. There's a better way to articulate that, but how are they supposed to carry things? Oh, with a wheelbarrow. Dun, da, da. So it's bacon. Dun, da, da, for old time's sake. So, all right, technology. I think being a futurist, what else would a characteristic of a shared vision leader be? And I don't know if there are a lot of them. Maybe there are, but I mean, I think those are two. Like everything you'd be seeing, and you're thinking some aspect of technology. Um, you're also this futurist, right? You're this shared vision. You have to be somebody who can be like, this is 3 to 5 years out. Um, traveling fools, yo yo yo, yo 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 yo. So, what do you think? I guess I'm begging. How can you help me out here? Because I have two. I think I need three things when I come into class on Saturday that I can say fit in the shared vision from what we have here. Um, I want leaders. Andrew, Andrew. Um, so as I look at this, maybe I'm thinking, okay, here's alternative pathway to licensure, consistency in teaching, um, s- electric schools. I don't know. Maybe there's something in here. Maybe, maybe the way the shared vision is that the way that we train people is so technology. What did I say? Is our first one. You have to be a futurist, and probably another part in shared vision is that the way you're going to train people is going to be um, different, right? Meaning this progressive credentialism of saying you have to have a bachelor's degree, then you have to have a master's degree, and then you have to have a license for bilingual or whatever it is. And and no, I mean it's kind of we've seen this already where you can go on and get Google certificates, right? In and you can kind of work and get your own credentials set largely for free or really low cost on you know through the internet has made that possible. And actually through like just YouTube videos, right? You can kind of get some basic skills on things. But so I think this way of learning for the people, for the educators, right, and for the leaders, ha- has this vision of that has to be that cannot be 4 years. These in 6 years, right? I mean, if you're a school leader, if you're a principal or special education, that's 6 years of schooling, right? At least. And the Board of Education wants people to return to work in the towns and stuff. Well, the longer you separate somebody from their town, so somebody graduates and they go in a college for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, they're less likely to come back into the town, right? Now, if they didn't have to leave the town or they left the town for 2 years or something, you probably would have a likelihood. So there, everybody's goals their vision kind of comes together. Um, I think that would make some sense. So do we have technology as a feature of shared vision in this scenario, futurist, and then also that your pedagogy, your whole process for how people become teachers, like the way you became a professor like 500 years ago, like the students would kind of vet people as professors, and then like they would also out them as professors. So um, now that's interesting. Like we're never going to get to the point of this. Well, I shouldn't say it, of students picking their teachers, because if schools become where the money follows the student, you're going to have all-star teachers out there, right? And people are going to be like, I want math from Mr. Cliff, or whatever, and I want whatever. And you're going to have people who are going to almost be able to do these like mini classrooms, or like I know somebody who does that in a different state, where the money follows the student. They're a licensed teacher in that state, and they take on like 12 students a semester, and it's like an applied biology and a chemistry, but they actually this guy rents some space, or the parents are there, and there's chaperone, right? And they'll meet up, and they'll go out and they'll take samples of whatever soils or things like that, and they'll study, and they'll be in vivo in those settings. And it for him, it's super successful. Like, he makes more money than he ever made. The students are loving it. They're learning, right? Um, and the everybody's trying to get in, and he's like, I'm only up to like 12 students. I don't need any more for my living and my livelihood. So the money follows the student, and it's fractional whatever courses he offers. So I don't know how the whole thing works. He's not real um, clear on any of that. I mean, he's legit. It's kind of like YouTube. Like, how much money do you make and stuff like that. He's not saying this is how this exactly breaks down, but it's Toy Town. It's Toy Town Abe. Um, After being classes all day, last thing I wanted was more together time. Yeah, watch cartoons, let my brain relax. So let me go back to my original Venn diagram, and uh, so Venn one is technology in that shared area. Two is a futurist. Three is like pedagogy, um, model change. I'll stick with those three. Students will be like, "Whoa, Dr. Proden." I'll be like, "I got a whole stack of them, folks, but we only have so much time." But that makes a lot of sense. I can make all of these work. So would this be like a great breakout session? Actually, be a good keynote at a state conference. You'll never see this, by the way, at a state conference. Not in my state. Maybe like where your state is, they'll invite me, but um, you don't see this stuff. Um, and this makes a lot of sense. God, I remember some breakout session I went to, and it was like years ago in school administration, how to get your vision statement right, and how to, and if it was mind numbing. And then you'd have these people, and then say, and then, of course, they try to get it down to like a sentence. All students will feel welcomed. All people, well, not most, all people will feel welcome, and be able to achieve gains. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just what you should do, right? Um, like, if you're not doing that, that's not really everybody should achieve to their maximum potential, right? But that's just what you should do. That's not really a mission statement, right? Um, and that's where I would be kind of like, and they would recite these things before board meetings and put them on letterhead. And it's like, and nobody reads it, nobody listens to it. But again, to state what you should be, like a fire department, our mission is to, um, you know, save lives and save, you know, homes, and people's livelihoods. And I have a lot of respect, right, for firefighters. But I'm saying, like, you wouldn't really have that as a mission statement, because that's what you do, and that's your expectation, right? So, you know, I think the mission statements have to be probably rooted in, like, we're going to be, maybe like your mission statement would be, we're going to be awesome at induction. Like, we are going to have our legacy knowledge and our institutional knowledge, and we are going to preserve it and curate it and pass it forward so we can continue a a line of continuity horizontally and laterally across our organization. Now that might sound wordy and you'd be like, well, that's just another mission statement, but I don't think it is, right? I think that authentically would be a mission statement saying we are committing to the protection and curation and transfer of our knowledge, um, which is your professional development, what you've learned and built, and your values and things like that over years. Because people come in and it just changes on. Oh, here's a new administrator. Here's what they believe, or board changes, and so I don't know. I really like this. I really am a big fan of this. And again, it had been well, it came out of necessity because as I was grading papers, I'm just like, no one is getting it. And part of that then falls upon me because, you know, these people aren't new to this. Like it's not their first rodeo. Um, so I'm not being overt or clear enough, or I'll just use this to say, this is where you went with this, which isn't uncommon. Like most people go down this, but think, let's unpack this. Like you're going down a road that really just put is where you're at right now, right? It's 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 not. It's kind of marching in place, um, and then and try to understand like why did you think that? Because and then also the other part is like how often do you really listen to students? Like actually sit down for 30 minutes and have a recording or somebody transcribe or you're taking notes and trying to qualitatively code whatever it would be. Like I said, for safety, have students say like ask the question, third graders, like, what would you want students to know about safety if they were moving here and they were going to start here next week? What should they know about our school for safety? Oh, like, they should know that we run drills, or they should know that it's really slippery on where the playground is, so stay off of like the paved areas and walk through the snow. Or I mean, they'll tell you things like you won't be thinking about. And then also these really elaborate systems you put together for people to report threats and stuff. They'll be like, should they know about the app that the district paid $10,000 for to have on everybody's phone? Nope, we've never used it, never accessed it. So, um, Polo's saying a horrible second grade teacher too. I had a second. My second grade teacher was cool, and she gave out. She gave out used tennis balls. Her for like awards, and made sure like they were kind of distributed through class, you know. But these were just the reason she gave them out was her husband was like not like a tennis pro, but like did tennis a lot, and there's apparently only so much life in a tennis ball. But for a kid, like getting a tennis ball, and he, was like a big thing, right? It's tangible, and you're so um, that was her reward system. And it was just kind of a neat thing. Like I still remember it to this day. And she was a good teacher. She was a um I just I it was I just remember that. I remember the class. I kind of even remember like where I sat, and I just remember like good feelings about that class. So da-da-da. Wow. Reading a post JLM. Holy smokes. Um is the can opener. Maybe back then, right? Nobody knows how the tennis ball probably was like all beat up and whatever, but like it still had some value to that kid. Or they take it then out at recess, and I don't know. Um, so so let's go back. Just take a look one more time here, and this is this is the assignment I came up with. It's an in-class assignment, so you don't get graded on it. They already had to do this a shared vision paper, which was a page. And again, when I tell people, I said the reason I do have you do some of these things, one is it aligns to the state and education essential questions, which you have to do when you're making a course, but um, you have to be able to answer this question because it will come up when you're applying for a job. It's going to come up if you're working in this area in education and leadership, right? And you've got to know you have to understand how you're going to go about this, right? So so here's how you went into this. No one's really probably ever taught you about this. So here's now an actual framework and model that you can use. And if you just talk about this, like during an interview, if you just say there are these things, like I made this, this isn't made up, but I created all of this. This isn't brought in from some exterior documents and some other people. Like I made all of this, right? So use this. Use this to speak intelligently about your when you're interviewing, right? And I mean, so so yeah, it's an activity, and then that's something I've done different this year. Is I've changed up some in class activities, and this is a new one. And I'll give everybody 5 minutes. I'll put it up on the overhead, just one of those countdown timers, and say, just take some time, like just kind of what comes to your mind, and if you see those words up above, you can't use them twice. So like listening is not a shared vision. Um, but I think this document would have helped me, and yeah, this would be a really good breakout session, or this, I don't know, as a keynote, it would be it. Nah, a keynote is really out there to motivate. This wouldn't be a good keynote. It would be a good breakout session though, of saying, um, you know, something like, what's really the deal with how to really create a shared vision, um, the actual I don't know. I'd have to come up. I'm not going to do it anyway unless somebody contacts me, right? Um, but I think if you follow this Venn diagram and kind of the framework and stuff that I put together here, and like you listen to me talk about it, it makes a lot of sense. Um, so I'm excited about presenting that because I know when people listen to it, um, that this will be the first time. Like they'll never hear this. They've never heard it before. Like so, it's all authentic. Um, is there a hierarchy in the Venn diagram? I don't know. I mean, the thing is, right, Bolo, you can perpetually add more circles, and then you have this shared vision area would encompass suddenly 4 or 5, whatever, 20, and that gets to be super difficult, right? I'm sure there's ways to do it, but um, well, and you know what? Yeah, you're right. There's ways you could, like, it's called a prioritization matrix, and I do those in class, and I could go through that of like how you could kind of get down to this. Like, so this is a department head, a principal's basically a department head, board of education is the head of the school. So these are already kind of your hierarchies or your biggest organizations. I guess your board would have the most say, but your principals have site-based management, but yet special education probably has the biggest legal obligations. So I don't know, man. I just came up with this, so it's a good question. If so, wouldn't one circle be bigger than the others? Yeah. Um, as far as influence, so, and I think you could kind of like, you could mark these, right? You could weight these circles. You could do it by size, right? Um, I think the reason I probably never is a good point though. The reason I've never seen them in size is because then people would see positionality within that and they don't want to recognize there's positionality. So like if you were to add students to this, the reality is a student circle would probably be smaller than the Board of Education circle, right? Because the board is really making the students don't have the power to make the decisions, although you could argue they should be the biggest circle. But the reality is they would probably be the smallest circle. But they would still have part of the shared vision. I don't know. I mean, it's good stuff, Bolo. I gotta let that stew and think about it a little bit. But yeah, and I think what would come into this, and this is where people write in their papers too, like, you know, um, so uh, you might have, let's say, 4K or community 4K 4-year-old kindergarten community, whatever, and that's a small group, right? So you're listening to that group or your esports student, whatever it is, like your somehow they inform your shared vision, but your shared vision doesn't have to represent everything about them. I don't have that kind of figured out yet. It's a good point. Someone tries to pin me down, I'll be like, look at what I already gave you here. Come on. I'm like, it's not a mission statement. Said reality matters. So, and yeah, so this is, I think, also the thing with the vision statement is the shared vision is it has to be a non-negotiable. It's in the future, and you probably aren't going to be the person who is going to arrive there. You're just somewhere, and somebody maybe before you started that journey, and you're the fifth person to receive the baton, right? And you're carrying it forward. So you've you have to be okay with that because if you're a micromanager, this isn't for you. Um, and you can also just lose the drive and the energy to do this too. But then it's like, oh, I'm working because if I retire, I get my pension, and yeah. I think the likelihood though here, because we teach induction in the class, induction process, how do people learn what's going on when there's so much turnover, is how do you preserve the shared vision? And I think the shared vision is kind of like you have to throw it out far enough where the local turnover doesn't affect that. It's like churning in the water, like you're splashing around in the water, right? But your shared vision is sitting up on a deck chair, like it's over there. So the water's not hitting it. But if it was in the water, like it would be all stirred up and stuff. Like the shared vision is has to be far enough away where it's pretty insulated from the day-to-day stuff. The day-to-day stuff isn't going to mess with, even like a pandemic would, you'd still have that shared vision out there that you'd think you'd regress to the mean somewhat and be back on that course. So I think that's another thing. And I have like all of the space, the chalkboards and stuff in class. I'll be like, you know there's going to be things that are going to happen in between here and here, but like you're still heading out here. Like if you're heading to the moon, right? A lot of things that happen in between. But um, simulated annealing, which is a term we've used. Well, that's just saying like you got to inventory your options and move on. You're doing that all the time, but I'm not going to bring it into this. But um, but yeah, your shared vision needs to you need to. It's kind of like you once you get it, you have to be able to throw it out there, right? And wherever it's going to land, and then you're going to put the things in place, and time is going to pass. The technology is going to evolve. Other things are going to happen. Policies will get changed, and then by the time you get to where that is, hopefully enough structures will be in place for you to manifest and make that shared vision happen. I think that example might work. That's where I would have to bring in something, a prop. I already brought in like one prop, a video game controller, when I'm talking about esports. But I think you'd have to have something, right, that you would toss forward. I mean, that'd be like a beanbag, and I don't have one here, but I have to come up with some prop, and then that would kind of go along with that theme. But yeah, something you once you have it, you know it's not ready, right? It's kind of like in Terminator, right? The Terminator 2, like they get the arm and they know they can reverse engineer. If time passes, they can kind of figure out the technology. It's like so, but you have to take this and throw this out there and know then by the time you get to it, the other stuff will catch up. Your systems will catch up. Your policy will catch up. Um, because I think that's a better way. If you just say it's a lighthouse, it's like, well, whose lighthouse? Like, who built it? And then all we're doing with our vision is calibrating to somebody's lighthouse. Where I think a different way to say it is imagine like you're holding a soccer ball, right? And you, how far are you going to are you going to throw it out there, or if you kick it out there, it's going to go out there further. So that's give you more time to put into play, but you don't want to put it so far out there that you're not going to be able to find it, right? That you just kind of know where it went. You're going to be going in that direction. So you've got to be able to like know where the soccer ball lands, right? Um, so this whole thing of like how far do you want to put it out there? I don't know, maybe I think I do have a soccer ball in the garage, like so I could bring a soccer ball and I could actually give it to a student right in class as a prop and say, imagine like this is the shared vision. How far out should this be? So let's say that where I'm standing right now is 10 years from now. So, I'm standing whatever from them. Where would you put this ball? Like stand up and put it like where in relation to me? Like should it be are you handing me the ball so that it's 10 years out? Is it between you and I, which would be 5 years out? I think that is a cool thing. So to put bring soccer ball. People love that stuff too. They absolutely those little quirks you can throw in when you're teaching like that at a college level, and especially, I don't not to toot the horn, but like a PhD level book publishing and TV presenting professor, people like those little quirky twist of doing something. Or I bring in the video game controller and pretend like I'm kind of playing as I'm talking about esports. Now esports, like I have this accessibility for students with disabilities, but like I'm not really paying attention to this, just kind of going off. But it's this weird and they don't expect it, so it's also something they kind of remember. So, and I always think like if I was taking a class from me, would I think it's a great class? And the answer is usually yes. Um, but I also am like, how do I make it even kind of better? Um, but and how do I have fun with it? Like I'm not there to entertain, although I do say it's kind of an edutainment because I'm very kind of animated when I present. But I'm like, you now they know me like this is me, and if you watch me on TV, right, this is me. So, but hey, we covered a lot tonight. Is the ball spinning and lifting itself up? Oh my God. I don't know. What if they kick the ball at me and I don't react fast enough? Ouch. Um, I think a part of that is like, so, all right. So are you rolling the ball, you're kicking the ball, or whatever, and then, yeah, I don't know. My physics did a cool plastic ball appeared to float in the air. Wow. When I was a freshman in high school, we had a mandatory communications class, and you had to give like four types of speeches: persuasive and informative. I don't know the other two, but um, true story. One student brought in like a gun and cleaned it like during classes as demonstration, which was, you know, worked out well. It actually that was authentic. Another student brought in a hairspray can and a lighter and demonstrated how to make a blowtorch. I'm not making this up. Um, and that was interesting. So yeah, demonstration. But yeah, this is this is good. And I think the another like analogy with the soccer ball is like, so how do you calibrate to this? Like, um, how is this out there so everybody can see it? Like, is it fluorescent? Meaning like that it's well marked for people. You're making people aware of it. Um, I think there's these nuances to that too, right? How do you make it so it's when every how do you make it so when everybody comes into the room, students, staff, parents that come into your district, how do you make it so when they come into the room, they know, hey, there's the soccer ball over there, right? That it doesn't blend into the background. Like the shared vision should be a focal point. Not that it's distracting, but it should always be like everybody knows where it is. God, I got to use that too. So it'd be like, this should be something that's e- readily you can readily locate it, right? And if you can't, then it's too abstract, right? Then whatever you do, again, it's like all students will succeed. Like people do that. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And what is success? And like I know a lot of people who didn't graduate high school who became millionaires and are very happy, right? Um, so like, what is your definition of success? And are there many successes? I mean, like these things fall apart, right? So I think that'll be an activity though, and then I'll just say like, I'll just leave it to the class. I'll say, tell me about this ball. Like, what color should this ball be? And then just see if anybody says anything, and then I'll just give some choices. Should this be camouflage? Should it be striped? Should it be yellow? Um, whatever. And then you might get people saying it should represent all the colors. No, like it's not representing the it's just that you know that it's there. So don't mix that up, right? The ball isn't representative of your culture, anything like that. The ball is merely a marker to help you recalibrate as you're going. And you don't have to get real precise until you get closer to it, right? So like if I'm driving from here to, you know, Texas, I don't have to get real precise with my driving until, I'm within a state of Texas, right? It doesn't matter my route from here, you know, to Oklahoma maybe. But once I get to Oklahoma, right, then I've got to calibrate much closer. And that's something too, you know. I think it's a lesson to teach people is don't over calibrate at the onset of these things because it burns people out. Um, and then if you stray a little bit, people then are like, "Oh, we're not going on the path," right? So you don't want people to feel that they're off the path until you get closer, and you have to like then do things to get people on to exactly kind of where you need them to go. But it's okay if people are kind of wandering as long as they're moving in that direction. So I don't know, this will be good. Like this is the kind of thing like they will talk about for a long time. I was a coach. Did you guys know that? I coached basketball, junior high, and high school for 7 years, and yeah, still one of the trophies over there. I donate all the trophies except two team trophies from '92. Um, we're 18-5. Players were so yeah, industrial solvent. Um, yeah, I've got not. It's not Goo Gone. It's Goof Off with acetone, man. Gotta be careful with that, but that that'll clean I've almost anything. But fun fact: airliners are technically off course 90% of the time. Where is that fact from? I'd like to use that. JLM's like, damn it, I just made it up. Really? Can you help me out here? Because that is good. That is actually that would be a perfect, R. Do you have open panels for discussion? I don't think I don't know, not in this format. And in the class I teach, Traveling Fools, not really. Um, do so I teach in person, right? So we do have discussion area. We do have a, kind of an open format and so that, and then people break off, and then we I kind of we do case studies and we do some debate stuff. And um, airliners are the airlines themselves. Well, come on, airlines are off course 90% of the time. Now I see it's on good. It's from Goodreads by Stephen Covey. Let me check this out. Um, Look at this, Stephen Covey. Oh God, I got to use that. Let me see here. So it's a Covey quote. All right. Um, I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to bring up my class, which I can't bring on screen because it's proprietary. So it's all of the Moodle component that goes with the class. So as I'm teaching, like I'll be like, go to the here's where the stuff is. And, let me go back to God. There's a default, and it always has editing off. And I think the default should be editing on. If I'm coming to the class, I'm usually changing stuff. Um, I don't. The class is well put together, but it's not super well organized. Um, FAPE roundtable. Here we go. Ah, text. Do I have that option? URL. If not, this might be a little bit of a problem here. Title, folder, book, chat. What am I missing? No URL. Sorry, URL. Come on, I know it's in here. There it is. All right. Oh, bad. Okay. Plain off course 90% of the time. Let's see if this actually works. Being with me. Um, Bingo. Bingo. No. It shows it, and then I have to go in and hide it. So like if you're a student in that one moment when I put something out there that I don't want everybody else to see until class, then you've got access to it. But thank you. Thanks. I mean, I just put it in. It's now permanently a part of my class. So see, that's another thing. People will be like, "Oh my God, like I didn't know that." I'll be like, "Yeah, I knew that all along." Um, but so that's liberating, right? But you also have to be careful you don't use it as an excuse to be sloppy. Um, you have to tend to things. You have to be a steward of systems. A steward of systems. Thank you for doing that. Traveling foods, you are correct. Uh, so, on you. No, this is through StreamYard. I don't. I have nothing in my dashboard where I'm able to do that. Now you can you can chat in the chat, you can communicate with other people, but you'd have to like, do that within the chat. There isn't a breakout chat feature. So, but welcome Traveling Foods. And if you haven't subscribed or fools, excuse me, subscribe, please do so. Um, again, we are within a few hundred hours of being monetized, which is, going to, it's good. Like, it's very good. Ah, all right. Um, so thank you for helping me work through this activity that I made today for my graduate legal class that I teach, legal and budget. I think it's a hit. You gave me everybody here, JLM, Bolo. I mean, you gave me terrific ideas, things that I wrote down and actually upload it. So like, this is great. So thank you. I am going to go to bed. Um, Tomorrow is mostly kind of just class stuff, and I gotta try to figure out where I'm going to put all this firewood because now I'm a little concerned. I checked the floor for cracks, and there really aren't. I mean, the house is built in '78, and it's a basement, like so you're on, and then there's some load going on the wall, and so there isn't a lot of per square inch pressure, but there's 10,000 pounds of firewood already in that room in a corner. And I've now started to think, I'm not sure tensile strength, right? Maybe I've got to like do a broader base. Like everything's been okay for 18, 20 years. I've kind of been using that format, but I'm getting a little hesitant about, loading that one room up now with like 15,000 pounds of wood again in a 100 square foot area. Even though the weight again is coming down. Because who was it yesterday or the day before said they had so much ammunition stacked in their garage it broke off the concrete in the corner. So I'm like, wow. I was just curious about StreamYard is made for bringing on people and having open panels. I can bring people on. Yeah, I can do that. I could share the link, but then I would be bringing people on, and that's not usually how I do the show. Um, so, like Monday night, for example, I will have a guest. Megan Usui is the guest on the show Monday night. So it'll be Megan and me. So, um, but other than that, like I typically just don't put the link up to bring people in, which I could do, but right, this is the show's like Monday night. That's actually a Safety Doc podcast. That's episode 190, and then has a blog post, and it goes out in MP3 that's leveled. So these are kind of like just in between shows, but generally this is a thought and somewhat scholarly channel, right? So yeah, I need to vet people, right, that I bring on. Um, so if you've seen people on the show, right, I know them, and we have a great crew over here in the chat. But so yeah, and I don't have any wood. I don't have any ants, termites, stuff like that. It gets burned down anyway, and I move the stuff out to the centers. That's never been a problem. Um, and the wood that I get is stored for your inside. The guy like professionally kind of does this stuff and provide. I mean, I'm like, there's a couple people, and then he's like doing it to like pizza companies that use oak and hickory and stuff. So, I'm not getting stuff that's been sitting under a tarp in the next to the woods. So, which, yeah, then that's bad. Oh, well, traveling fools, tell you what, this is how to contact me, which is there, right? And also you have safetyphd.com down below. If you go there, you'll find me too. So say, hey, like I am traveling fools, right? And here's what I'd would like to contribute to your show as a guest. Like Graham Wilson a few weeks ago, who was a pilot and a flight instructor actually in Canada, was a guest on the show. And Graham was, started out in the chat and he said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about this Decide model and just how um, training is for new pilots, like just getting your pilot's license, how that works and how things are kind of similar maybe in schools with safety and how things are different." And that was a great show. And then again, just started from him saying, "Hey," and I said, "Here, send me an email and tell me who you are, and then we can take it from there." But I am certainly always open to having guests on the show. So yeah, why don't you? Here I am on Twitter. So find me on Twitter and subscribe to the show, which I'd appreciate here. But I will follow you back. Um, so search. We'll be the first to show up on a search. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great. So email me. I'm very interested in say like, here's what I would want to bring to the show and discussion. And yeah, I mean, um, let's do it. So it goes for anybody else. I mean, I've had, Lee Jarvis, who was in the chat, was and then just knew a lot about intellectual property and stuff. That's kind of his thing. And he's like, well, and I think I kind of reached out and said, come on the show. Like, let's talk about intellectual property rights, right? And how that is changing and where you see things going and what people need to know. And that was a great show. So awesome. Let me get over here. You just followed me on I will follow you back. Oh my God, you have a lot of followers. Um, that is, yeah, I have two. That is awesome. I have, and I see your YouTube channels. So, yeah, I'm at my 2.8 thousand or 2,800 Twitter followers, which I've been at for like a couple of years, but I am growing here on YouTube to 1.2, 3K. So over 1.2 or 1,1230, which is again kind of a niche channel, and been gaining. But so um, all right. So are you guys? You're a traveling couple? Is that it? Traveling fools? By kind of looking at the. Oh, yeah. So you guys got a lot. Yeah, that's a huge wrong being done upon people. Yeah. So okay. So hit me up. We have like the same kind of subscribership here, about the same size. Hit me up here, Traveling Fools, and I'd love to have you guys on. So, um, likewise, the doc is very open to being a guest on shows. So I'm coming back to the Michael Deacon program. I just have to. Michael's asked me a couple times, like for a date and a time, and but ask me. I would love to be on, and I talk much more than school safety. I just talk about whatever, right? The velocity of information, which it's the book about chaos and or whatever. I'm pretty flexible, right? So if there's something you're like, I'd like to, there's something here Doc's done, and let's bring on and talk more about that. Um, that would be awesome. So, all right, appreciate you guys. I need to get to bed because I'm old and I perpetually cannot stay up late and get up early. Um, so, but yes. So I will take us out. No, that's not the same way you took us in, but I'll take us out with a little fun here. Thank you, everybody. You did really help. You helped me out big time tonight, which you've done before, and like especially in like Bolo and I throw things up here, or case studies so I'm going to do in class, and then we kind of just think about it, and I'm like, there's little pieces that fall into place, and it's like, boom. It is great. You guys are really insightful. Like when we were doing the budget stuff, remember, like a month ago? That was a great activity, by the way. And so it's kind of interesting. I'm going to share that story at some point. Like, I've taught over 100 university classes, for 19 years. And the fact that before I run stuff by students, I'm actually running it by people on a YouTube show, right? And a case study or something. And then, or like I'm trying to, they don't know like whatever about budgeting, and I'll put some things out there and they'll have to sort it. And it's like, okay, so like it's making sense what I'm doing, because people then who are closer to this and know this lingo and stuff, this should click really well for them, and it does. So let's go, and I'll take us out of here. Have a good night, everybody. Oh, wait a second. Let me do it this way. Look at this. I'm on the beach. Look at this. And none. And then, all right. So thumbs up here, subscribe. That's all appreciated. And, it's good stuff. So we are, it's all great. So, all right, everybody, the curtain is up, and I am out of here. So have a good one.
How were the beans and chili that you had for breakfast?
They were delicious. Thank you for asking. But now I am very gassy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Who let the frogs out? Pew, that stinks very bad. I have to open the window. Oh no, my cap flew off and it was sucked into the engine.
Holy smokes, the engine just cut out. We should use the Decide model to help us make the right decision.
Mayday. Mayday. I am declaring a beans and chili emergency. Please advise for landing.
Flight 019er, 2 miles northeast. Turn left at 90. Maintain 4,800 to establish an approach.